Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Sands, and today it's a episode I'm actually very excited about because I grew up in Pittsburgh, where Great Lakes Brewing is a very popular beer. It's brewed in rival Cleveland, but we still enjoyed the beer a lot, probably because, I mean, you guys have been around for quite some time. And you were making good beer before there were many places in Pittsburgh making good beer. So we had to adopt something from Cleveland to enjoy.
The one thing.
So I'm joined by Steve Forman and Micheal Williams from Great Lakes Brewing Company. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Yep. Happy to be here.
And I didn't realize how popular in this area that you guys already were. Because I think it's coming up on a year that you actually had just launched into Maryland, and there was way more of a buzz about it than I would have anticipated, just because you don't hear people talk about Great Lakes in Maryland, but then like as soon as you guys launched, everyone talked about how much they like Great Lakes beer.
Thanks.
Good.
Yeah. We were just talking with our area manager down there, Laura Nagy. She's awesome. And, when we entered the state last October, we partnered with Backup Beverage, which is a totally craft-focused distributor. So, all our distributor partners are great, but when the focus of the house is entirely craft, that means everything is focused on breweries like us, which is awesome. So they've really been killing it for us. And I guess we're in Backups, at least in the top 20, and might even be close to the top 10. So definitely got to give a hat tip to our distributor partners at Backup there for making us well known. We really appreciate that. So
yeah, they're always one of the distributors listed by Maryland breweries as one of the really good ones. So you guys definitely went with the right company.
Yeah, awesome to hear. And I look forward to, once things clear up, to visit the crew down there and see what's going on. So
I'm a little biased, but Maryland does have some great beer, and Frederick has just the best beer in the nation. So you should definitely go to Frederick.
Yeah. I've never actually made a stop, but I know Flying Dog's right there. So cut my teeth early on with the good old Belgian IPA early on in my craft days. So
and there are about 10 other amazing breweries in tiny little Frederick to visit.
Awesome.
So I don't know how long has Great Lakes Brewing been around? When were they founded? Can you just give us the origin story of Great Lakes?
Forman, you want me to handle that one?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, cool. And I'm kind of like the big time education nerd at the brewery. So
so I neglected to say what you guys do. Mike is the education coordinator. Yes, coordinator.
I teach
and Steve Forman is the brew pub brewer or brewing manager, brewing manager.
I manage myself. That's about it.
So you have horrible employees, or just they're all good?
My employees are the worst. My underlings are the worst because it's just me. They always talk back.
Forman, do you want to say a little bit about what you do in the pub before we dive in?
Oh yeah, that's fine. I do. I brew on our original 7-barrel system. The first system they started brewing Dortmunder on. And from there, I with that, I get to play around. I make all the pub exclusive stuff. A lot of R&D is done on there. That was our only source of R&D for a long time until we got some other equipment. I think we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, so I get to screw around. I get to have fun. I do have one of the best brewing jobs in the company. Make sure beer's flowing, make sure it tastes good. Every once in a while, if I get a really stupid idea, I can whip it up real quick, and try it out. So
that's really cool that you guys are still utilizing your in comparison tiny brew house that you started on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's It's a good little system, you know. I mean, there are some challenges, seeing as it's 32 years old and you couldn't really get a 7-barrel system too easily back then. You know, this was custom made. The designs were drawn up and took it to some welders about 45 minutes south of here, and they made the first tank. All our first tanks that I still use. The first fermenters, the first brights that they built are still in use in our pub.
So did Great Lakes start as, and this will be a great segue into you, Mike, giving the whole story, but did Great Lakes start as just as a brew pub?
Yeah. So, our little give our little history here, and part of my past role was being a public tour guide. So I literally said this little spiel here about 10 times a day on Fridays and Saturdays for 3 years. So it's in there. We did start off as a brew pub. We operated that way from 1988 to 1992. Our origins for the company start with two brothers, Pat and Dan Conway, from Rocky River, Ohio, which is like 20 minutes directly west of downtown Cleveland. So two local boys were kind of getting the itch to do something a little different. Pat was in education and Dan was in banking at a local bank in town. And they decided they wanted to go the entrepreneurial route and open up their own brewery. And that's why they ended up founding Great Lakes Brewing Company as a brew pub. A couple of things that tie into that are a large part of the inspiration for founding a brewery in the first place came from Pat's travels in Europe. He went to the Rome campus for Loyola Chicago for study abroad. And of course, while he was there, he took advantage and explored the entire continent and had some really stunning beers like fresh Czech Pilsner from the source, effervescent Belgian ales, and so on and so forth. So he wanted to bring back those full flavored and full bodied beers to the city of Cleveland. We hadn't had a brewery for about 5 years at that point. And then part of the key for opening as a brew pub specifically was the traditional beers in Europe are so frequently paired with wonderful food and rich experiences with other people and in conversations, whether it's in a Bavarian beer garden or a Belgian cafe or what have you. So when the brothers started the company, they wanted to bring that element, not just the amazing beer, but also the high quality experiences that you could have over a shared meal and over some well-crafted beverages. So that is why we ended up opening up as a brew pub. Operated that way for 6 years. Then we moved around the corner in our neighborhood in Cleveland, which is called Ohio City, near west side of town, about 5-7 minute drive from downtown, just over the Cuyahoga River. We opened up a 30-barrel production facility in that plant. Done pretty well the first 6 years, established a good reputation. We won a bunch of medals from Great American Beer Festival. I'm rocking this year's hat. It's obviously not happening in person this year, but they still sent us hats. That's nice. Forman has a hat too. So thank you, Brewers Association. And of course, the competition's still happening. So we started distributing throughout Ohio at that point. And then in 1998, we moved to our large system, and we've been brewing there ever since. So that's the extremely concise overview of the history right there.
So can people visit the main brewery? Is there a tap room there too, or is all customer facing stuff at the brew pub still?
We do have some customer facing stuff open right now. So obviously we're taking all the proper precautions for the pandemic right now. So all our tables are 6 feet apart. Plenty of patio seating, although of course patio season is starting to wane a little bit, but everything inside is also appropriately spaced. Barriers in between, bar stools and tables and things like that. Mask wearing from staff, so on and so forth. So the pub's open. Forman's got a couple fun brews on tap right now that I'm sure he'll talk about. And limited menu, but the kitchen staff's really killing it, considering the tight circumstances. They have some really unique stuff. They have a burger with corned beef and sauerkraut, basically a Reuben sandwich on a burger, which is obviously
interesting.
Obviously called the Breuben, right? So a lot of pretty good stuff food-wise at the pub right now too. No tours right now, unfortunately. Our production facility is in a very old building. It goes back to the 1870s. It was actually a distribution facility for a brewer in the late 19th century, Leonard Schlother. And as you can imagine, it is a pretty tight space in there. So it's a little too tight in there to do brewery tours. But what's cool is, and I think it's something we'll probably come back to later, we're doing a lot of online experiences through our Facebook page, or I run a program called Hop College, which is an education program we normally do in person, but we're running many events online right now. So we're still offering the customer a chance to interact with us despite all the circumstances.
Yeah, we don't talk about that to item 7B. Which I have to commend you. This is probably going to be the absolute. We're just shy of 200 episodes, and is by far the most organized episode that I've ever had.
That's
I think
what happens when you get a marketing person involved too. So
well,
if they were just whatever. Right?
Well, I've had a bunch. Like I've gone through marketing people for a bunch of places, or even PR places that will like email me, ask me like what I plan on asking, and like most of the time, my response is I don't know. I wing it because I literally almost always. These are just completely winged because I don't know. I found that I just did better if I didn't have a set of things that I absolutely wanted to hit. So like I think the first person to ask me ever was Guinness, and they were like, "Well, we need a rundown of what you're going to talk about." I was like, "I don't know. I don't do that." Like, I had to just come up with things I knew I would definitely ask.
So we're hanging with Guinness right now.
No, you're further ahead. They didn't send me an agenda. This is even better. I didn't have to. You didn't make me think.
I don't talk me up too much. I kind of whipped this together in about 15 minutes on Friday afternoon. So, but I appreciate everything.
That's still more effort than I put into it.
We do this stuff so often at this point that it's like, we love sharing our story at GLBC, and right when the pandemic started and we knew we were moving everything to virtual, like within days, I was already thinking in that mode. So like, you get this stuff down to a bit of a science, and it's second nature. It's great. It's great.
Stone also wanted to know a little bit more of what I would talk to before they would let me interview Greg Cook. So it was those two, but
probably a good idea.
Yeah. Right. But you were the only one nice enough to do the work for me.
Hey, I do what I can. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So
but let's not constrain the conversation because of that either.
Oh, no, we won't. Trust me. I'm going to definitely at some point, I'm sure, take us way off to the left or right. Because you're going to say something that's just going to make me go on a long tangent. That's usually what happens. So the production facilities that's still operating off of the 30 barrel system?
No, that's moved up. Forman, do you want to talk about the big boy?
Sure. No, we actually don't have that 30 barrel system anymore. When was it? 2000 then when we moved in there?
98, 99, something like that.
Yeah, it was right around. Yeah, right around there. We moved actually to the building across the street, which Mike was talking about. That used to be the Schlather.
Okay.
And then in there we have a 75 barrel system. So we have a 4 vessels. Well, I guess now we have 5. It's a 5 vessel now because we do have our runoff tank that we go into. But 75 barrel system. We have 225s, 300 and 600 barrel fermenters and also 300 and 600 barrel bright tanks for everything in there. And up until recently, that's where, that is where everything is brewed. And it's going to be, everything was brewed and packaged up until recently. Now we're doing some outside packaging, but everything is still brewed on that 75 barrel system.
So it's a quaint little brewery.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just a little, real cozy.
Yep.
It's amazing how many that I'll find out about. And I mean, I've known of Great Lakes forever because as I said earlier, like that's one of the good beers we would drink in the Pittsburgh area. But there's so many like your breweries like you where you have a fairly small footprint because how many states are you in?
13?
Yeah, 13? So like
with Maryland, it's 14 now.
Oh yeah, it's 14 now. I've been saying 13 in DC for years, now it's like, oh yeah, I guess so. 14 in DC now. Cool. But
make a ton of beer in just those small footprints. So what is your yearly barrelage?
I think right around now we're down a little more, but we're still pushing right around 140.
Yeah, so you guys are even bigger than Flying Dog.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. How much do they do?
Last number I heard from them was like 120.
Oh yeah. So yeah.
They're top 50. I think we were 23 last year.
Yeah, we're top 25. I know that.
Yeah, so it's great. Like that's a huge testament to you guys to be able to sell that much beer in a small footprint and save a ton of money on shipping. I imagine too, comparatively to breweries that spread that out across the entire nation.
Right.
And that will, quality is higher too because you're getting product fresher and so on and so forth. I think looking at the top 25, this is definitely not a definitive statement here, but we're almost I don't think there are many other brewers that have a smaller footprint other than somehow New Glarus does all of their beer out of Wisconsin. They're like number 16 in the country, but
that's
beer right there. So,
are there any other breweries in Wisconsin?
Right.
They really like beer. Yeah,
and the Spotted Cow that you mentioned earlier,
right?
Steve, is a great beer, but man, that strawberry rhubarb. That beer is just absolutely amazing.
Yep, I love all those wild beers they do. Beautiful place too.
So what is Great Lakes number one? Do they have like a flagship beer that's a number one sales, or is it pretty evenly spread across all of them?
So for us, we're maybe a little bit different from a number of other regional brewers where almost depending on which market you're looking at, different beers are going to be trending potentially significantly higher than others. So in the home market here in Cleveland, Dortmunder Gold is huge. And, that was one of our first two beers. It was the gateway beer for so many Clevelanders for 30 years, still is. But outside of Northeast Ohio, Dortmunder is a lot lower on the list for a lot of our markets. So if you look at, I believe in the more, DC, Maryland area, a beer like Elliott Ness does a lot better.
That was going to be my guess.
That's how it is in Pennsylvania, like Pittsburgh. I know Ness is huge, like over there, and over in Chicago, it's Fitz. Like in Illinois, and that Fitz does really well over there.
Fitz does well in a lot of the outer markets because it's so heralded with 5 GABF medals. So yeah, it's interesting. We're a little different. A Clevelander would say Dortmunder Gold for sure, but if you're in another market, it might be someone else. That being said, with the way craft drinkers are trending, we are shifting the portfolio a little bit, not to neglect the other beers, but let's be real, the craft consumer wants high quality, differentiated IPAs. And so we've had Commodore Perry IPA for quite a long time. But we'll get to it in a second. We're drinking, some of us at least are drinking Hazecraft Hazy IPA right now. And then
I saved that for beer number 2 because I really wanted to have an Oktoberfest. Because I drank one yesterday, and I think it's actually the first time I've had an Oktoberfest from you guys, and I was blown away by how good it is. That it's just, I was telling Steve before you hopped on, like it's definitely one of the best Oktoberfests I've ever had.
Yeah, it gets high rankings from like Beer Advocate, so on and so forth. It's personally my favorite beer that we make. Also, I feel like I always bring this can when I have a thing with Forman, but
Gorgeous.
IPA.
Gorgeous can. Woo!
It's got his face on it right there.
Right?
So that's the more West Coast style IPA. I got to show that off,
Is that a regularly made beer?
Yeah. So Great Lakes IPA and Hazecraft, all three of those are year round. I'm pretty sure they should all be available down there.
I haven't been really like in a beer store, like just perusing the aisles probably since February.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a little things are a little more concentrated out there on the East Coast too. So definitely makes sense. But Maryland's my sister's down, for those on the podcast, my sister's in Baltimore. So we're always keeping track what's happening down there in the good state of Maryland. So
I think we have some amazing stuff down here. So
yeah,
you guys should definitely come visit. I encourage everyone to. Actually, and I took actually let's take a real quick sponsor break and we'll get back. And there's a couple other of your beers that I want to touch on real quick that I find interesting about them.
Sounds good.
Cool.
If you haven't heard about our beer dinners, well, now you have. Typically, the last Tuesday of each month, we partner with a local brewery and craft an exclusive 5-course dinner. Each course is thoughtfully paired with some of the finest craft beer available. You'll meet the brewery, enjoy memorable pairings and service, and have a damn good time. Like us on Facebook to stay in the know when tickets become available, because they will sell out quick.
Idiom Brewing Company proudly offers a delicious variety of beers to satisfy the most discerning tastes. Best known for their wide array of IPAs, delicious fruited sours, and robust porters and stouts, Idiom prides themselves on continuing to innovate, utilizing new and experimental hops, local ingredients, and unique flavor profiles. Idiom has a simple goal in mind: to bring people from all walks of life together to enjoy themselves and each other. Idiom Brewing Company is located in downtown Frederick, just south of the intersection of East Street and East Patrick Street, with ample seating and directly on Carroll Creek.
So I think the first beer I ever had from Great Lakes was Burning River Pale Ale. And I would venture to guess that's probably a pretty popular one, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is up here.
And because the Pale Ale seem to be rank pretty high on the especially large craft breweries.
Yeah, it's an old school pale though. It's kind of Sierra Nevada pale inspired and all that too. So
yeah,
it's got a pretty good story for us too with the whole Burning River thing. I don't know if I want to go down that road, but
and I had taken BJCP judging class like over a course of a few months. That basically just taught me in the end that I had no desire whatsoever to be a BJCP judge. But one of 4 Imperial Red Ales, Nosferatu, was what they used as the example of that style to teach people what that beer was.
I think we're in there for Nos. We're in there for I think we're in there for a couple others. I wouldn't be surprised if like Dortmunder, because it's one of the few American brewed ones you can get. So
yeah, but I mean, like this was years ago in Maryland that I took it. Like, and the instructor went, I don't know which state he drove to, but to get it to use as the example.
Oh, very good. Yeah, because I'm sure you guys were actually tasting all the beers too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't be a BJCP judge if you don't taste them all. So
yeah. All I learned was that my palate is garbage, and I have no desire to put that much thought into the beer that I'm drinking.
Yeah, it takes rare breeds. Forman and I are very different in that way. Right. I was a philosophy major and stuff, so that explains a lot right there. Yeah.
So do you fall more in the line of the BJCP way?
I'm a Cicerone nerd and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. So
Steve, are you more along the lines of me, where you just like to grunt good or bad after you try it?
For the most part, yeah. That works. I've been doing this a long time, and before I could get certified, I had to learn a lot of bad beer, I had to drink a lot of bad beer. That was long before you could get a title to go with it to know what those off flavors were coming from. So, I've got sort of, I don't think I have the best palate, but for what I need to do, it works out pretty well. It works for me.
Yep. Hey, he makes the stuff. I just talk about it. So I always defer to Forman.
Well, most of the time, and trust me, most of the time I hate what it's maybe hate's too much, but it's like, I'm just never happy. It takes a long time where people be like, oh, wow, this is so good. I'll be like, oh yeah. Cool. Thanks. I'm like, well, next time I'm going to do this, this, and this to it. And I think that's really going to make it work. So,
how long have you been brewing?
20 years now. I guess 20 years professionally.
So new to the crew,
right. Yeah. No, I started. Yeah, it had to be like 2002, I guess, is when I started. I started at a small place in California. I grew up in Cleveland. I moved out there, and I knew beer. I knew craft beer, and it was all came from where I worked. And there was you could only you'd get craft beer at the state liquor stores here. There weren't a lot of like great beer stores. Now I can walk to Convenient and up the corner store and get a good beer, a good 6-pack. Before it was like you had to search out to find that stuff. And I was lucky enough to work right next door to one, and I would go in and buy two bottles of beer every day after work, and I'd go home and I'd make my black and tans. And that kid said to me that at the cash register the one day, he's like, "You really like this crap?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Here, try this." And he started feeding me different IPAs and all these different craft beers. So when I got out to California, I knew styles, and my interview was they lined up like 12, 13 beers and told me to name the styles. And I told them what every single one was. And they were like, cool, you want to start cleaning kegs and scrubbing drains? That was it. From there on, I started the next day and read everything I could, learned everything I possibly could. Because it was a lot harder then too. I didn't have Google to like search how to do something. It was like, well, I found this book. Check out this book, and we just kept reading until we could learn as much as we possibly could.
I will give myself a little bit of credit. I think I could pick out at least what style beers are if I try them.
Right? Hey, that's all you need.
I'm not even saying I definitely can. I'm just saying
if you can
maybe.
Pick out style and good or bad, you're golden. You're perfect.
That is all you need right there.
Right?
But I'm not one of those people that can drink something and then rattle off a bunch of like what flavors they're getting.
Oh.
Pineapple, mango, passion.
I mean, unless if it's if it's that obvious, then most of the time I'll get it right.
Yeah.
But
it smells like the breeze wafting through an open window, something like that.
Like this is definitely an IPA. I'm positive.
Fooled ya.
You're right. It is. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So you were brewing at a small place out in California.
Right? Yeah. Where was I? I was brewing out there, Central Coast Brewing. They're still kicking it. They're still running strong out there in San Luis Obispo. And then I moved back. I moved back home to Cleveland, and I applied at Great Lakes, and there was nothing open. And so I actually started at Great Lakes as a host in the restaurant because I just needed to get my foot in the door. And I never worked at a restaurant, like a real restaurant, in my life. And I was a fantastic host. I was born to be a host,
Go there.
Right? Yeah, go sit down. But yeah, and then it took me a few months, and something popped open on the bottling line. I went over there and basically asked tons of questions about the machines that I never used before, the fillers, the labelers, and all that, and learned how to work all those, and slowly worked my way up the ranks. I've pretty much done everything at that brewery. most departments. The only one that doesn't have I officially wasn't an employee of a department would be in the lab. But I mean, when I was in the tank farm, we're doing all the cellar work. I was still doing lab work constantly every day, cell counts and all sorts of stuff every day.
Do you think that's helped you? Like knowing everything else that happens and how it's done after you make it as it goes through the process from your angle to plan forward?
Yeah, I absolutely do. Yeah, it really helps knowing what that beer is going to go through before it gets to you, especially when I'm thinking recipe formulation and things like that. I mean, at least for me, I think it does. It helps.
Have you worked in the production breweries also, or have you always stayed at the brew pub?
No, I've been doing the brew pub thing now for 5, 6 years now, give or take. And before that, I've been with Great Lakes for almost 15 years now. So, and then the 10 prior to that, I was, bottling line. I did packaging for less than a year, a couple years in the tank farm in the cellar, and then doing all the yeast pitches and filtrations. And then I brewed on that system for about another 5 years. I brewed on that 75 barrel system over there.
So is your job kind of an envious position there? Because I've heard from at least brewers at other really large production breweries that it can get very boring. Just shift brewing on that huge of a system. But I'm guessing you probably have a lot more ability to play around when you're not making stuff at 75 barrels a clip.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and it is, I'm lucky. I am lucky to have the position I have. I get to have fun. And I feel the shift brewers, I've done it. And when you're on your 240th batch of Christmas ale for the season, and you still have 100 more batches to go before you're done. I've been scarred. Yeah, I can honestly say I'm scarred from brewing things on production wise. It took me a long time to get back on with honey. It took me a long time before I could use it or even smell it. Cinnamon, I'm still not good with cinnamon. I mean, we're spending, when we make our Christmas ale, it's, there's a 55-gallon drum. There's like 500 pounds of honey in every single batch. So it's like, and we've got these heat bands around it. So you've got these drums of honey just steaming up on you that you're pumping in there. And then you're dumping buckets full of cinnamon sticks, and the cinnamon dust is like, you're just coming home stinking. And it's like the one time a year I would come home from work and I'd stink, but it wasn't like a bad stink. I smelled like a cookie.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess like working with that much honey, no matter how careful you are doing everything, I'm guessing it still ends up being a sticky mess.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're always going to find it, I'd always find it like on my forearms after work, like taking a shower and being like, oh my God, just caked with just dirt and goo stuck in this honey.
Yep. I always thought that I would, at one point in my career, I was working in the restaurant. Best place to start in the brewery, if you have a tap room, is to start in the tap room of the restaurant. I would argue that some of the best people in the company started in such positions, like Forman. So I was a busser, got into serving, and I was like, okay, I like talking about beer and brewing and stuff like that. It's like, oh, see the guys over in the brewery and like, that looks cool. And I started giving tours, and I would, we'd go into the brew house, and depending on the shift, what time it was, and you see the brewer just like that. I'm like, nah, I don't think I want to do that after all. So I ended up going down the sales and marketing route instead. But obviously, those guys are doing amazing work for us over there. Especially, I don't know, Forman, you could probably describe it a little bit better, but like, there's still a good amount of manual stuff in that system, and it was set up in the late 90s. So those guys are dunking 20 pounds each of cinnamon and ginger in these 75 barrel tanks via this pulley system, and
our cranes. And I mean,
so it's not like Like if you go to Trogs, where?
A point and click.
Yeah. Like that was, I think Trogs was the first brewery I ever toured that was like that, where they showed you pretty much just like load a recipe and then click run, and it just does it.
Oh, geez. And no, that'd be crazy. Yeah, we don't have that. We're still, we basically have that for our 2-row, for our base malt. We can set the weight on the scale and hit start, and that'll go on its own. But all our specialty malt, those guys, every bag gets lifted into the hopper, cut open, dumped in by hand to go through the mill. Same with our hops. Hops are weighed out on a scale in 5-gallon buckets, and we line them all up. And you better be watching that clock.
They still have to, like, there's chutes build it, like they're like the clear tubes. Those get filled with the hops, and then depending on when the additions are and stuff, it just runs through and adds it all. When it's
man, that'd be nice. That'd be a good day of work.
Very nice system.
Probably coming home clean and not sore. Not that tired.
That's the future.
Yeah,
I mean, I imagine like what you're working on is probably 100% manual, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've got a drive for my pump to adjust the speed. Other than that, no, yeah, it's 100% manual. Steam valves, I crack them, I get them to where I want them. Yeah.
Yep. That's why you're ripped on the can, man. Right?
I know, man. They took my belly and put it on my chest. They took my thighs and put them as my bicep.
You just boom.
Wait, can you hold that can up again? I looked for it on the website. I couldn't find it. I just want to.
That's backwards.
I still can't put. Do they give his mustache the proper credit it deserves on the can?
He's got the full beard there. He's other
it is
on the label too there.
It's an impressive mustache.
Thank you, sir. See, guys, talking to my kids now. He gets it.
So who are the other two gentlemen on that can?
So there
are Lisa Farmer.
One of them's Lisa. It's cut off a little bit, so zoom in a little bit.
That is not a gentleman. Sorry.
Lisa, she's our Southern region manager. She's awesome for sales. Rob, the man, the myth, the legend, is the dude with the little flask right there. He is our first shift lab guy. Lee is hanging there in the corner. She is one of our bartenders. A couple other employees are on there too. The label, it gets cut off a little bit because of the swoops here, but we ended up having people from back of house, from packaging, and from keg, or both bottling and kegging on the label too. So
that's pretty cool.
So tribute to that. We just became an employee stock ownership company in 2018. So, and that beer, we were R&Ding that beer at that time. So we thought it would be kind of a cool tribute to that whole ESOP culture we have here.
That was, I don't know how, I guess that was pre-entering Maryland, so it wouldn't have really been big news entered here. I didn't realize that you guys were also an ESOP.
Yep.
Which still confuses me how that works.
Yeah, me too.
It seems really cool.
We're learning. Yeah.
Right? Learning. Hey, we just got some shares. We got last year's evaluation and shares the other day. So we get a few shares every year. So the longer you've been there, the more shares you started out with, and then it's based on your salary and
how long you've been and
how long you've been there, and you get a percentage, and then you get X amount of shares each year valued at whatever our valuation was. So
I think different companies work differently, but the way that the Conway set this up is that it's basically like an addition to your retirement plan. So you get these shares, and then once you retire, or if you leave for another reason after you're vested, then you get paid out. But what is cool about our ESOP is that...
Wait, real quick though, because I have a feeling I'm going to ask a bunch of questions about all this and talk about it for a while. So let's take a real quick sponsor break, and then when we get back, I want to talk more about ESOPs, because I think it's just because I'm stupid and I can't wrap my mind around.
You're not the only one. You're not the only one here.
So we will be right back. There are many reasons why I have chosen District East for where I purchase beer. I love the flexibility of being able to make a custom six-pack or take home a crowler from one of the 8 beers on tap. Their friendly and knowledgeable staff do an amazing job at keeping a diverse selection on hand. You can even purchase artwork from the monthly featured artist. District East is located on Northeast Street in Frederick in the same shopping center as Family Mill and Rockwell Brewery. You can find today's beer lists on the District East Facebook page or at www.districteast.beer. I'm excited to announce our newest sponsor, Vanish Farmwoods Brewery. Vanish is a brewery and entertainment complex located on a 62-acre hops and apple farm in Luckett's, Virginia, just 20 minutes from Frederick, Maryland and Leesburg, Virginia. With over 20 beers on tap, a selection of wines and ciders, along with multiple food options, there is something for everyone. Vanish has live music on Saturdays and Sundays and a wide variety of special events. Go to vanishbeer.com for information on everything they have to offer. So I got to interview Dan Canary from Harpoon. It was shortly after they bought Clown Shoes or merged. I can't remember what that one was called. And we talked a lot about Harpoon becoming an ESOP. And I probably should have grilled him more, but I don't know. It felt weird talking to some guy a bit. And it was really early on when I started to do this. I was just dumbfounded that Dan Canary was willing to talk to me. And because he kept referring to it as a liquidity event, and it was
we're starting to lose all of us at that point.
Yeah, right. and the reasoning for them to become an ESOP was that one of the founders, I don't think it was a brother or just a friend of one of the people who founded Harpoon, wanted out.
Yeah,
and they didn't want to sell. So they became an ESOP. So I'm guessing it means it's financed from a bank, because he kept mentioning bank financing somehow.
Yeah. So there's different ways to do it. One's where it's almost like the owners would the company would take on a loan to buy out the owners.
Okay.
But Pat and Dan didn't want to do it that way. They didn't want to have to take on that debt. So
I think that may have been how Harpoon did it.
Okay.
They did it just to be able to buy out the one guy and then distribute shares. Because I think they actually all the owners were bought out at that point. They probably still retained some shares, but
right.
Yeah, that's essentially what Pat and Dan did. Which is awesome.
So they didn't do it with taking on debt. How did they do it?
Correct. So they're basically, my understanding is, they're basically giving some of their own wealth back to us, right?
Okay.
But shows, those two guys have always been extremely down to earth. This what's Pat, early 70s, Dan's upper 50s and something. So they're not as young as they once were when they founded the company, but throughout all 30 years, I'm told, of course, for the first 20 years of the company, I've been around for 8 years, but they've always been around in the brew pub, even long after they've been in active management roles. We've had an executive board at Great Lakes, a CEO, Mark King, who just came on last October, about a year ago, CFO, VP of sales, marketing director, all that stuff. But Pat and Dan didn't just go off into the shadows at that point. They're still involved with the company to a certain extent. They still come by and have beers. A little different now, obviously, with the pandemic, but we still see them every once in a while. So it just made a lot of sense for them to do the ESOP that way, because they know they're not going to be around forever. And so just to have this plan in place to gradually over time transition ownership of the company from their own wealth to, the employees is pretty awesome. How that exactly works, right? Get Bob Senta, our CFO, on the phone, but that's yeah.
That's what that's what I don't understand, because the money obviously has to come from somewhere, because he he kept referring to it as a liquidity event, and I think at one point, even in the interview, and he's like, "Don't worry about me, I am definitely got my money."
I think what might have been different for them is it may have been an immediate transition as opposed to us where it's gradual over time.
Yeah, I think theirs was like overnight. It went from privately owned to an ESOP.
We're just setting stuff up for the inevitable future that, eventually it'll be just us running the show. So
do they have children that are like, are other people in the family still involved with the brewery, or was
we have one, right? Emmett?
For sure. Yeah.
Son, he does sales up here in Cleveland. He was doing them out in Chicago when he was living out there, and then he moved back here with his wife, and now he does some stuff in the Cleveland area. But other than that, there's no other. Am I forgetting anybody, Mike?
In the company, no. Dan's daughters are all kind of like just graduating college or like not that long out of college, so you never know. But I think, I don't know, even to have one who's like, and Emmett's awesome. He's not, he's not, oh, I'm the heir and stuff.
No, Emmett used to come back from school, and shoot, he might have still been in high school, and he'd bus tables for the summer at the restaurant. And man, we would just bust that poor kid's balls so bad all summer long,
Yeah, sometimes being the boss's kid doesn't help.
No, right? No, but that was just it, If we didn't like the kid, we wouldn't even have talked to him, So obviously we liked him because we were, messing with the poor guy.
Yeah. But that's awesome that they did go the ESOP route, because I'm sure Great Lakes would be an attractive acquisition to a large conglomerate.
I know there have been offers, I know, in the past.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know by who.
Yeah.
But Pat and Dan were like, nope. Yeah, no way. So it worked out really well for us.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I'm sure that this is one of the routes they went to protect it from that happening.
Right.
Because I remember him saying that's one of the reasons Harpoon did it too, is that it protects the company from a buyout like that.
Yep. And nothing's ever set in stone. I'm
sure there are ways to.
Yeah. It's highly, highly unlikely. It was definitely the statement move to say, we're committed to independence. So
yeah, that's really cool, and it gives, the individual employees more of a stake in the future of the company. You care more when you're one of the owners.
Absolutely.
In theory, I think that's what they say.
Yeah, we're building up the culture, the ESOP culture here. So
yeah. Was there any kind of a transition or any kind of I don't know what to say, a concerted effort to do anything differently when it happened, or was it just oh cool, well this happened now, okay, let's just keep doing our jobs?
Basically.
Yeah, it was we would have a series of monthly meetings updating on company objectives and stuff, and we'd always have some education and training involved with that. And I think they were planning on focusing on it more, and then the pandemic has kind of derailed focus on that a little bit, just because you don't have people all together nearly as much as we used to. So, but we had an all-staff meeting last week, and we were talking about that kind of thing. And I always with my educational stuff, I run tons of, in addition to the public stuff, I run tons of internal staff trainings. And I've been focusing more on not just it's essential for our staff to know the brewing process and beer styles, sensory, specifically, especially what our beers are supposed to taste like and so on. But for an ESOP company to kind of own that ownership mentality, you have to know what's going on out in the beer world. What are the trends in the market? What brands are really hot right now and all that kind of stuff. And so that's something that we've been trying to bring to the table more and more for our staff. And the classes are open to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're bottling line, server, VP of sales, whoever, people from all over the company attend these classes, which are of course via Zoom now. So I'll talk about we did a lot of education on Hazecraft, obviously over the last month, because it's such a huge release for us. But I didn't just talk about, what makes a hazy IPA what it is. Juicy, Forman's favorite sensory descriptor, and so on and so forth. But also, like, why are we doing a hazy IPA? Why are we going to do a lot more IPAs? Why are we going to come out with some of these other styles? So, looking at trends that are going on out in the beer world and responding to them. So that's another thing that kind of ties into the ESOP culture that we're building up at GLBC.
Okay. I think, well, so mentioning trends, we're going to be a little out of order from your
I'll accept.
And because I'm almost finished drinking mine, we should talk about Hazecraft, because this is a really, really good beer.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm especially enjoying this can right now. We
were sold out at the gift shop, so I'm the only person here not drinking it right now. I've never seen our gift shop sold out like a year round before.
Good sign.
Well, it's tasting really good.
Yeah, that's all right. I had a few of them yesterday and the day before. So.
I think we've tasted and talked about this beer so much over the past 6 weeks that it's kind of like I dream about it. It's like, there it is. There's the honeydew melon and all that stuff.
So when you're developing a beer that's going to become one of your year rounds, is that done in the brew pub or is that done on another system?
So it used to be in the brew pub on the 7 barrel, but now, we're coming on a year and a half. We actually bought a 2-barrel system, 4-vessel 2-barrel system that mimics our 75-barrel system. And it's right up there in our main brew house. So now it's nice because, I can just pump through. I'm not stuck with 14 kegs of something. I've got maybe 3 kegs at best. And we can just pump through these beers. Like I'm working on something for next year right now. And I think I'm on version 7 of it right now. And, at one point we had 3 different versions in the tank at the same time. So it's not as crazy as it used to be for developing them on that pub system when that was, because then it would be like, okay. And then I'd be holding off on putting a beer on tap, because I was waiting for the first version of it to drain, to sell out. But yeah, that our 2-barrel system has made R&D a lot easier than it's ever been.
So is that you primarily brewing on that also, or is there several people designated to work on?
Pretty much. Well, I do a majority of them on the 2-barrel, but then we also have there are certain days of the week where our production brewers, their shifts overlap. Like our weekend guys, they'll do 12-hour shifts on the weekends, but then they'll pick up 2 8-hour days to make up for their hours. So sometimes when there are 2 brewers on, we don't need 2 brewers doing the 75-barrel batch at the same time. Somebody else, if we have an open tank, somebody else will brew whatever recipe's next on, whatever's next on deck for the 2-barrel.
So I'm assuming Hazecraft started out on that 2-barrel system. Or was that even earlier in development? Before you had it.
I was screwing around on my own on the 7-barrel and made a few the earlier versions, and I was really just messing around with grain bills and that for hazies, figuring out what I liked, but when Hazecraft was decided we were going to do it, we did go straight to the 2-barrel. And there were a couple different versions. Grain bills always stayed the same on that. We did play with the wheats a little bit and the oats, but for the most part, it was always different hops until we found what combination that we really liked. And this is where we ended.
So is this based on those original recipes of messing around on the 7-barrel?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah.
So this is your recipe then? More. Okay.
This is
okay. Well, I'm glad I did. like it. And
Yeah, trust me. If you don't like it, like that's the worst thing somebody can do is if they don't like it, be like, oh yeah, that's good. It's like, no, tell me, because I'm like, the criticism makes me a better brewer, because then I'll look at what they're saying they don't like about it, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I see what they're saying, and that maybe I'll stop liking it all of a sudden. But when somebody just tells me, oh, I hate that beer. Well, why do you hate that beer? Because I don't like IPAs. Well, that's not a good excuse.
Yeah, that's not constructive feedback.
That's part of the beauty of having that 2-barrel pilot system, especially for these really important launches for us that are year-round beers and competitive categories, is that in the past, I mean, Forman, you would do what, like one test batch or two, maybe?
There have been a few, yeah.
My goodness, like so much at stake, like business-wise for these brands. So like to have that 2-barrel system and for the team to be able to pump out at least half a dozen brews, first of all, it's just really important, shows the commitment to quality. And then two, for a lucky duck like me, who, again, I'm in the beer world, I know my sensory and stuff. I don't have to sweat over a boiling kettle for 60 minutes or anything like that. So I get to just saunter around down to the pub, because our offices are right above the brew pub.
Okay.
And I get to be the one who tells Forman when his beers aren't as good as they should be. So. It's a beautiful, but it really, for both this beer and the one with his face on it, Great Lakes IPA, both of those beers I got to saw from kind of an objective standpoint as a customer, really, like buying these beers after work, how good these beers got over the course of, 3, 4, 5 months. Like, it's really hard. It doesn't matter how good of a brewer you are to just whip up a hazy IPA recipe out of nowhere when we really haven't brewed too many of them before, and then put it straight into a can. Like, that doesn't happen. So it was really cool to see these beers get better and better over time. And when that last test batch of Hazecraft was on tap in the pub in like June or something like that, we kind of knew like we had nailed it. And I at least was super happy with it. Forman is never happy with his beers, so I don't know.
Are any brewers though?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's how it should be. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think anyone who creates something is rarely satisfied or happy with what they've done.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You always because you're so much more intimately aware of what it is that you can see every tiny detail that you aren't completely happy with, whereas someone else trying it and enjoying it isn't looking for all those little faults that you perceive.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. It's somebody loves that's the thing. There are times where I've hated these beers and people are like, oh my God, this is so good. And I was like, okay, cool.
You have horrible taste.
Yeah, right. And then I'm like, then I have to go back and like second guess myself, because I'm like, it's good, but I know if I do this or this, it'll be great, and I think it usually takes me by the third batch, I usually am dialing things in by then. Like, I feel like 3 is my magic number. By the time I get to that third batch, it's pretty damn close to me being happy, at least.
Yeah. So comparatively to, actually I've drank a lot of it, so it's hard to show. What a nano brewery would call a hazy IPA. It's very different looking. But the taste is very similar.
Right.
Is that a function of needing a shelf stable distributable beer?
No, not
or
so much.
Just the way it's designed.
Yeah, I mean, I said it years ago in an interview. It's like I wasn't trying to make a New England, something murky and muddy with this. And that's when people are like, well, what do you think about these New Englands, these hazies? And I'm like, well, do you mean a hazy IPA or a New England IPA? And I still cut the two into separate categories. It's a personal thing. I mean, it's hazy. I don't want super like, I don't want it to be a big yeast bomb, you know. I want there to be a nice protein haze in there. You're not going to be able to see through it, but I don't want it to be just this murky mud, like it's the end of a tank finishing off.
No hot particulate in there.
Yeah.
I can't remember at all where I read it. But it was like a very seasoned brewer railing on New England IPAs and hazy IPAs that there's no reason to make a beer look that way, that you can create all those flavors and do everything and still have a crystal clear beer. And I think that's what's happening with a lot of the very large breweries, that you're still getting that juiciness and everything else, but it's not like what you said, murky.
Yeah.
Right.
There's something I read, and Forman might know this a little bit better than me, but like there is a certain point when you're hopping. So like the hallmark of a New England IPA, if you're thinking about the classic stuff that's made by Hill Farmstead and Alchemist and Treehouse and Trillium and all that, it's got that. I mean, this is still, well, mine's almost gone now. It's hard to tell, but I held it up a lot. You guys saw it. It was hazy. Like, it is not a clear beer, but it's not as like, doesn't have that straight up opaqueness that those beers do. But those beers are also hopped, and like other, especially the small tap rooms, as Chris, you were bringing up, like they can afford to dry hop these beers at like 5, 6, 7 pounds per barrel, you know. But like when you're on a scale of a 75 barrel system, like you just don't, brewers, you don't do that, and you don't have to do that.
There we go. That's a better way to show it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's hazy, but it's not straight up opaque or murky.
Yeah.
And I think you see part of what's key is think about this beer compared to like Bell's Official or He's a Little Thing and beers like that. Not necessarily the $22 4-pack of Tall Boys that you get down the street, which are awesome beers too. But like those guys can afford to throw all the galaxy they want into those beers and make it work. Whereas if you're putting your beer on store shelves for $9.99 in 14 states, you know, you have to work within a certain realm. But also,
I don't know how much 6-pack of because Hazecraft sold as 6-packs, right?
Yep. 6-pack 12-ounce cans. Yep.
And it's nowhere the price of a 4-pack, so it definitely has to be made differently.
Yep. Right. And there's a certain point where like the liquid's oversaturated. Like you're not actually getting that much more hop flavor and aroma.
Yeah.
Like you're dry hopping at that higher rate. So we just don't use as many hops, so we don't have quite as much haze. But there's still tons of juicy tropical fruit.
100%. Like it is it's one of the few hazy IPAs where you could say it hits all those flavors and you could still say it's refreshing. Yeah. Like it doesn't like you could burn easily through a whole 6-pack of this. At least I definitely could.
Oh yeah. I guilty.
Yeah, right, exactly. I've never done that before. Right. Yeah. I love those super thick hazies, but I'm usually one and done, maybe 2 with those over the course of a night. But Hazecraft, it's the happy medium type thing, which is what you tend to see for a larger producer. It's still hazy, it's still juicy, but it's not overwhelming on mouthfeel. You can still knock it back.
So I had told you guys that I would only keep you for an hour. Do you have more time? Can we keep going? Or do you have things you...
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. I was going to ask because I'm out of beer, so it's time to...
Yeah, so much. So why don't we take... thankfully, we just bumped up a sponsor spot from the end to a third sponsor break. Let's take real quick break because I also... I want to refill too. So we'll refill and then we can continue our conversation.
Cool.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back. Uncapped is brought to you with support from McClintock Distilling, Maryland's first and only organic certified distillery. They are well known for their award-winning gin and are rapidly growing a name for themselves for their Matchstick Bourbon and Bootjack Rye Whiskey that have both won double gold at international spirits competitions. You can visit them in historic downtown Frederick along Carroll Creek for tours and tastings. Go to mcclintockdistilling.com for more information. All right. Unfortunately, didn't have any other Great Lakes beer cold. I drank. I started drinking some last night, and I had way more than I intended to.
The beautiful day.
It was beautiful. I was outside grilling, and it was just one of those days where they were going down so smooth, and I just kept going.
Great.
So
It was the last hurrah of summer yesterday.
Right.
I think it's all downhill from here. So I had some beers too. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm like, that's what happened to the Hazecraft I had at my house.
Right. There you go.
And then Steve was making me feel jealous, so he kept showing a can of beer with his face on it. So I had to run and grab mine with my face on it.
Oh, nice. Look at that. Beautiful. Who made that?
Full Tilt Brewing in Baltimore.
Cool. Very nice. All right.
Is
We got two people with faces on their cans.
right? Look at that. Jealous now, aren't you, kid?
So I actually get.
I'm even more jealous.
Is that one brewery? What the heck was their name in DC there, right by the ball field? It's like Thunderdome.
Blue Jacket?
No, yeah, it's no. It's sort of by there. They're outdoor. Everything's outside. It's like what I picture a post-apocalyptic brewery being.
I don't know.
Oh my God, it's right there in DC. Begins with a B. It's something weird. I don't know. We were at a ball game there when CBC was in DC. What, 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
And so we went and saw a baseball game, and my buddy Joel, who used to work for us, and now he has his own brewery on the east side of Cleveland. He and I were leaning over like the upper deck bar there, and I'm like, man, doesn't that look like fermenters and a kettle over there? So we started walking that way when we got out of the park, and there's some crazy, like, surrounded by shipping containers. We had to go through this weird barbed wire fence, and then next thing you know, we're standing in this gravel pit filled with fermenters and bright tanks outside.
I have no idea who that is.
Bardo. Their name's Bardo.
Oh, someone actually just. I don't know anything about them, but
It's Thunderdome. It's Thunderdome.
So it's funny that you brought them up though, because someone just recently told me I needed to interview them because they're super interesting, and I'm guessing
crazy.
it's because it's a Thunderdome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is now, but I've never seen anything like it before or since. You know, they had a bunch of automation on this thing too. They made their own like programming so they could run it from home on their phones and stuff. And I'm like, it's all,
get out of bed.
Yeah, it's all just like mishmash, puzzle put together system too.
And it's outdoors?
Yeah. When I was there, everything was outdoors.
That's crazy.
No cover, no nothing, man. Nothing. It's nuts. Their coolers are like where some of the brights are just shipping containers that they converted into giant walk-in coolers. Yeah, it's nuts. It's nuts.
So I think I might know where that is, because is it right outside of the stadium?
Yeah, it's pretty close, and they were building condos, like new condos, right next door.
Yes. So I was in that area because it's been just a big surrounded by shipping containers.
Yep.
Like all the walls of a big area.
Yeah.
But when I was there, it was just like that's where the bars. There were some bars and stuff like that. So I guess they added a brewery to it also, because it's been several years since I went to a Nationals game.
Yeah. It's crazy. Check it out. You're right there, man. If it's what it was 3 years ago, it's nuts. Because I was even like, well, what are you going to do in the winter? And the one brother was like, oh, we just shut down. Okay, cool. So
yeah, I mean, we don't have a climate that's conducive to
an outdoor brewery.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, Maryland goes like from miserably hot to miserably cold in a 2-week time frame. There's only like maybe a month total of the year that it's comfortable.
Right. Yeah, you guys get more humidity than we do, and we already got enough.
Right.
Huh. Yeah, I gotta check them out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they don't have more of a like more hype around them in this area by
Yeah.
like how interesting it sounds.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Was the beer good? Maybe that's the
Anything
problem.
like that up here. Yeah.
I don't remember the beer. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I don't remember it. I mean, I remember outside. I'm expecting a couple like rabid dogs to come out from around the corner and get me. But, you know, it's by far the coolest brewery I've ever seen, I guess.
And now I gotta go check that out.
Yeah.
All right. So what there's something we fully intended to talk about when we came back, and now I don't remember what it was. What were we talking about beforehand?
Oh man, that's tough.
Hazecraft, ESAP, Hazecraft.
It was Hazecraft.
Yeah.
I had a specific question though. I should have wrote that down. So okay, I guess we can lead into this is a very different package than anything else that look how good that turned. I usually have so much trouble getting the camera to focus on anything I hold up. It's a very different package and art than pretty much everything else that Great Lakes does. Is this a trend that you're headed towards, or is it because of this specific beer?
It's from both for the actual literal package format of the can, and then the label art itself, and even the name to a certain extent. It's definitely an evolution, it's a good way to say, of where we're heading as a brewery. Historically, our beers are very Cleveland rooted / Great Lakes rooted, but a lot of the stories and names come from the city of Cleveland, and it's still essential to our identity, absolutely 100%. But we also sell beer in 13 other states and DC. And so it's important to have beers that are a little bit more of a wide appeal. So, and also the colors that are on the can pop out a lot more. So if you're familiar with our older packaging, some in the company have referred to the older packaging as the black hole because it's like this much just big black and white Great Lakes. And then there's like, oh, look, there's a cute little picture right here. And they have to kind of squint to see what it is and everything. So even that's like our first evolution from 2015. Still a lot of black and white on the label right there. And in 2015, that did the job for us. The refresh we did in 2015 really united all the labels with a single artist that we were using at the time. But now, I mean, think about everything that's out there, whether it's on a literal store shelf or coming from the small tap room. It is cans that have bright, one of two things. It's either extremely minimalist, where it's like, just the white background with a couple striped colors or something like that. Or what you see more frequently is really cool artwork that takes up the entirety of the can and is just popping with bright colors to really grab your attention off the shelf. So that's definitely an intentional move we did with Hazecraft for this particular can. And there's still some connections to Ohio, like it's got the rocket ship on it. We've had 25 astronauts hail from the state of Ohio, I believe 7 or 8 from Cleveland specifically. But also it's just like the image, there are 8,000 breweries in the country right now. And people love to try a lot of beers. And, you might get this beer from Great Lakes that you really liked, this new hazy IPA that came out. What was it? And of course, it's probably going to say haze in the name, but like you see that rocket ship, and you're like, oh, yeah, it's that one. It's a really distinctive image. There's kind of like even a flavor cue on the label itself where it's kind of got this green and I don't know, pinkish orange to it. And with this beer, I think about like honeydew melon and cantaloupe a lot. And these colors just kind of evoke those tropical, fruity melon type flavors. So you're going to see a lot more artwork from us. We have a lot of new stuff coming up next year. The artwork's going to look a lot more like that. And it's going to be a lot more in cans than it has in the past. So, yeah.
So are you going to transition to cans or just add more and more canning to?
A little bit of both. You know, I mean, yeah, some beers are going to have both package options. Others are going to transition completely to cans. You know, there's a few beers that sort of, at least for now, need a bottle. You know, cans will be cool, but you know, fits in a bottle I'd like a lot more than fits in a can, I think, personally.
Why is that?
Same with our porter.
Yeah.
And then same with our Christmas ale. That one, you know, everybody knows it in bottles. And first time I try that in a can, it'll be weird. You know, it will be strange. I mean, over these years, I've sucked down a lot of bottles of all our beers, but any of them would do in a can for me, except, you know, that just something about Christmas time, bottles of Christmas ale, you know, I don't know, it goes hand in hand. So when I'm going to be sitting there holding this can,
yeah,
if it comes in cans,
nothing's ever out of the question, though.
I know, right? So, but, I mean, we'll see how they do. You know, I mean, cans are a little easier, a little cheaper to produce.
You can't get them now.
I mean, you can't get glass now either, though.
Oh, really? I didn't realize there was a glass shortage
I think
too.
it's coming back. I think they said by like mid to late October, everything should be cool. But no, we've been buying trucks of glass from wherever we can get it from. We just had two guys drive up a truck from Mexico with some bottles because
was the only place to source them.
Yeah, our supplier, they're like, yeah, it's going to be tight. It's going to be really tight until October, and so not too long, not too crazy. But you know, I mean, I've wanted us to be in cans for 10 years. Cans have always been my preferred package.
From a packaging stability standpoint, or
no, from a drinker standpoint.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't got to worry about crashing on my bike and cutting myself if I'm got a bag full of cans, you know, and a few beers.
It's a lot lighter.
Right, exactly. You know, and that was the thing. I mean,
carry everything. Yeah. My fridge better.
Yeah, they absolutely do.
More beer. Yeah.
No, I'm like, I can't stack bottles.
Nope.
So is it all going to be 12-ounce cans, or will you do larger format ones also?
No, we'll do larger format as well. Yeah, so we actually have our own canning line now.
Okay.
It's coming in. We've been like for the Hazecraft and the Great Lakes IPA, and the Dortmunder, the cans we've been doing. We have 180 barrel tankers, and we've been tanking them up to Detroit and had a contract packager for us. And it's worked out great. It
tastes great.
Yeah, it tastes great. And that was my main concern, where our DO levels, our dissolved oxygen levels were my biggest concern. Like I was a real pain in the ass for some people, like setting it up, because I was the one like, what about our DOs? What about our DO? You know, just being the little nerd about it. But, you know, I mean, it's a legitimate concern, and we dialed it in. Everything worked out good, and the beer's holding up great in the packaging. So, you know, thank God for that. But we have our own. We're still going to be using our tankers, but we have our own packaging line, which I think our own canning line we bought a warehouse in Strongsville, Ohio, which is 10-15 miles south of the brewery. So tons of space. We've got like a 13,000 square foot cooler in the middle of the warehouse there. And then we have our canning line set up there, and we've got 4 or 5 bright tanks over there. So we're just going to be sending everything, 10, 15 minutes up the road and packaging it off. And I think we come online in next week. I think we're ready.
Yeah, next week or the week after they're gonna start.
Yeah, isn't it like the 6th or the 7th? I think is when we're gonna go online. Yeah, so
that's cool.
Yeah. It'll be real cool.
Yeah.
I would imagine that there are probably a lot of longtime Great Lakes Brewing drinkers that would just reject if you completely replaced the bottles.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
that are convinced that it's not good out of a can.
Right.
Yeah. I've gotten calls like
Really?
before. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like the beers that we're keeping in bottles for sure are definitely like beers that have been around for a long time. Like Dortmunder, Commodore Perry, and Fitz, like Forman already mentioned. And then like the beers that are going to be can only are beers that like new drinkers to Great Lakes are going to be the main audience for them anyways, for the most part. So
Right.
It should work out pretty well. Yeah.
Like Hazecraft isn't going to go into a bottle,
Yeah, I wonder if there's anyone that makes a hazy IPA that they bottle. That just seems like
There may
weird.
have been one once.
Yep, you're looking at him, buddy.
That was before we did a hazy IPA in March, but we didn't have the Detroit arrangement set yet.
Okay.
So
Right.
bottled it.
Yeah.
But that's what I thought too. Is like, who else has brewed a hazy IPA in a bottle? Like,
I'm gonna have to look that up because I
I'm
can't
sure
imagine
there
many.
has to be. There has to be.
yeah,
It probably. I mean,
Not a
there's
lot.
probably some small places that just don't have access to canning, but have
Right.
like a small little counterfill bottler that they.
Right.
But still, I still have for some reason. Although I could tell you these the Oktoberfest, and I don't even want to run down all the ones I drank yesterday. Those are the first beers out of a bottle that I've drank in I don't know how long. And it's everything I drink is in a can now.
I know. I mean, me too, though. That's the thing. Yeah, everything that I want to buy is. Well, if I do get something, it's something like older, that's been around for a long time. That I'm like, oh, I haven't had that forever. I'm gonna get one of those.
Or now, like, so I was gonna say it's still drinking a barrel-aged stout that's in a can feels weird.
Yeah, exactly.
weird. I'll still do it though.
Well, I mean, yeah, like there's no difference to it. It tastes just as good. There's no negative to it. It just, for some reason, feels weird.
Yeah, it is weird. That's for me. It's weird. I'm like,
Yeah, it's so often you think about this. The only beers you lay down, put in the cellar, and like I would feel weird putting a can in my cellar. Like
yeah, but the thing is, eventually you will be putting cans in there.
I know.
You'll be laying cans down.
If I ever still cellarings, I drank most of my cellar at this point, but
So there's a group of my friends that every year around Halloween, we're actually doing in 3 weeks from today or 3 weeks from the weekend or whatever. Where 3 years ago we dug a big hole in his yard and we built a coffin, and we had a party and we filled it with beer, and then we buried it. I can't remember how deep, but it was wherever like the line in Maryland is where it stays 40 degrees all year round. And then so last year was the first year we dug up and drank what was in the coffin, replaced everything. And I think like out of everything we buried, there were maybe like 2 or 3 cans. Everything was bottles of stuff, but we also used it was kind of like everyone showing off like the rarest, oldest bottles of things they had to put into the coffin. But I'm wondering, like, I'm curious to see, like, as we keep doing this, is it going to shift that we're burying more and more cans, and are they going to hold up as well as the bottles do?
Get some wax dipped cans and stuff going.
Well, so we actually. That's part of the process. We dip every bottle, just to add an extra to protect the cap. So we figured like, well, we may as well do it to the few cans too.
Yeah.
So the cans were the top of the can was wax dipped,
I've seen one somewhere. I forget. It was like an Anchorage can or
and
something.
it looked ridiculous. It also was completely impractical when we tried to open it.
Yeah, because you're gonna puncture the can, right? Oh yeah. Doesn't
So
seem
while
like
it, so while it thought funny and is a good idea, while we had been drinking all day and we're putting everything back into the coffin, in practice, it ended up being not a good idea.
Yep. That's
I like this coffin idea. I like it.
It's really fun. It's stupid, but it's super fun. I'll
Not
have
even
to.
over the coffin.
Yeah, I'll when we're done, I'll send you a link to the article I had wrote about it. It
Awesome.
has a bunch of the pictures and stuff from when we did. It was stupid, but it was a lot of fun, and it gives us an excuse every year to get together and drink a
Dig
bunch
up a
of
grave.
dig up a grave and drink beer that had been buried for a year. And every time you tell the story, I tell the story, people are like, "What? Why would you do that?" Like,
No, I think it's great. I love it.
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
so when you already said that when it's going online. So that's when, do you already have like all the new art and stuff that'll be at, is it good?
Well-
Like, so will Oktoberfest be in a can? Is it going to look different than the bottle?
Eventually, but not yet. I would
Okay.
say this time next year, you'll see kind of the fully refreshed
Yeah,
look.
it'll be a slow transition, you
Okay.
know. Of some things will go can only, some things will be bottle and can, you know. But when they do turn into a canned package, that's when you're going to start seeing the switch of the artwork.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
it'll switch in both formats.
Yes.
They'll match each other. Okay.
So yeah, the bottles will have the new label art, and they really do they look pretty snazzy with that new
Yeah.
label art. It's not they definitely work for both. And like
Nice.
we've kind of gotten, you'll see as they roll out, but in fact, some of them are going to roll out pretty soon. But even on the bottles, we kind of got rid of the black and white space, and now the color extends the whole way up on the label. So it's still recognizable as the GLBC brand, you know, but it's a lot brighter.
Yeah.
Well, even
I
on
think most of them-
Hazecraft, you have the nice big circle.
circle. And I think that's pretty much what most of them are going to be. That's where the black and white will be with our logo, but then it's just the rest of the can's artwork.
So with Hazecraft, there from your social media, there's definitely been a lot of effort put into launching this. Is it being looked at as like a way of bringing in the newer next generation of craft beer drinkers?
The whippersnappers.
Yeah.
The young whippersnappers. Yeah.
Whippersnappers.
The young folk like me as opposed to the old men like Forman.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely.
Well, obviously, you can tell by my stripe and my beard. I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
exactly.
it's all in there.
I'm not exactly young.
Probably heard by me.
You're the head for a reason, though. This is sticking around. I really need a haircut right now too.
Steve Whippersnapper.
He's got hair. Great.
Maybe old, but I still got it.
I always wear a hat for a reason. Yep. But yeah, this is definitely the first of many new beers we have coming out that are, I'm sure, focused on maybe a younger generation, but like just people, craft beer drinkers across the board. I think almost any age range love pretty much any IPA, and they definitely love hazy IPAs. I think when you look at the data, when it comes to craft beer sales, maybe by dollars, IPAs are getting close to 50% of all craft beer sales, which is totally mind-blowing to think that of all the craft beers being sold in the United States, basically 1 in every 2 of them is some form of IPA. Maybe it's not that mind-blowing because everybody is brewing so many of them, but for a brewer like us at Great Lakes, we've only had one for our first 31 years. Great Lakes IPA came online last year, Hazecraft IPA this year. So is a very intentional choice, and it's definitely, again, never to the neglect of any of our other great beers that people have enjoyed for so long, but like, this is where people are going. And you can, and we will keep pumping out pale lagers and amber lagers and porters, and especially drinkers like me will be so happy to have all of those. But if we only did that, then we probably wouldn't be around for too much longer. So making all the IPAs is, first of all, just it's what the craft beer drinker wants. I also love all the IPAs, and it makes keeping all the legacy beers that people have loved for so long possible as well. So you're going to see a lot of cool new stuff from us next year. We're just pretty much wrapping up plans on for. There'll be plenty of hops involved, but there's going to be some other cool stuff involved too that we can't tell you about yet.
Right, I know. I told you I'm on number 7 on that 2-barrel.
Yep.
I'm on batch number 7 of something over there.
May not be what you think.
Right.
When looking at the definitive way to grade whether a beer is good or not, at Hazecraft's Untapped rating, it's been received very well.
Yeah, I'm a ticker. It is Untapped all the time, and I keep track of what people are saying. And for an older brewer like us, it's easy to kind of get sometimes rightfully so, a little criticism about not being innovative or whatever. But for the most part, people have really given pretty good comments on this beer. And then, the one thing that always gets me is when I see people say, "Oh man, tastes great. That's tropical." It's like, but it's not really hazy. And it's still like a picture where it's still mostly hazy. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you gave it a 3 because it was like, it wasn't turbid orange juice.
Well, but I mean, I think that's what the hardcore craft beer drinker has grown to identify a hazy IPA as.
Yep.
Because the what they get from the tiny brewery down the street that doesn't filter at all, and that's what their hazy IPA looks like.
Yep. And that's totally fair, and that's absolutely true.
But I would argue, who cares? Although, and it's funny, like, if we rewind like 5 or so years ago, there would have been the criticism, this tastes great, but I can't see through it and it looks disgusting.
Yeah. This looks gross. Yep.
Yeah. My, how things change.
So quickly too. Yep.
But yeah, I drank one today at work earlier while I was taking photos in the studio, and I was very, very happy with how it tasted. Like, it was just a really good beer. And then the one I just had, it's a great follow-up to an Oktoberfest also.
Mm-hmm. Those hops will come that much more alive after all the
malt. They did. Like, so that's when I had it earlier today. Like, the flavors were great in it, but it hit so much harder right after drinking more subdued beer, like from a hop profile standpoint.
Yeah, totally.
So it was really good.
Excellent.
What does it take to go from I guess a better way to phrase it would be, are there things that you make in the brew pub that just happen to make it into full production? Or is it always a deliberate, this is something we want to see in our portfolio, and then it makes it into the portfolio?
I mean, I think especially within the last year and a half, 2 years, it's been, we want to see this in our portfolio. So I start screwing around with something. But before that, we've had a few, it was just me wanting to make something, or, I just had an idea, and it used to be if something really took off in the brew pub, then we'd start considering, at least a limited run of it. And we, up until, this year, sort of got, screwed over a little bit. But I mean, we would do small canning runs where we would do 175 barrel batch and can that out. And we did a few things with that. I know we did.
I just want to point out how funny it is that like you guys consider a small canning run 75
barrels.
Yeah,
I know.
we only can 75 barrels of it.
I know. Right? I know. But
Yep.
you know,
Relativity. Yeah.
but small for us.
Yes.
Small for us. But there have been times where something took off great. Mike, what all have I remember we've done the Goza,
Yep.
we've done the Mexican lager.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's right, with the lime. And then that became full production actually.
Yep. That's correct.
Yeah, that became a seasonal full production.
Mhm.
So I guess to answer your question, nowadays it's more or less, well, we want to do this, and this next year, and then I get anywhere from 3 to 10 months to try to figure something out. And then, but it used to be more straight from that 7-barrel, and it went off. It was more, I guess, what's the right word? Organic, where it was. I made this at the brew pub. It went crazy, so I made it again. It went crazy again, and then we'd start talking about putting it in, doing something small with it.
Right. Whereas now it's the industry is just a little bit, it's matured to a certain extent,
Right.
where you need to have a little bit more planning ahead of time. So, which is good.
Do you have the freedom to make whatever you want on the 2-barrel system or on the 7-barrel at the pub?
At the 7-barrel, absolutely. And most of the time, especially now, the 2-barrel is tied up for R&D solid. We used to do employee brews probably every other month, where we'd get a group from a department. They'd sit down with a brewer. They'd go over what they want to do. The brewer would basically, we'd make up the recipe from what they said they wanted to do, and then we'd brew that beer with the employees.
Oh, cool.
We don't have time to do that anymore. Yeah. Like we haven't for a little while, because we've just been pumping out these beers, and and then it's where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought, boys.
I don't know, but Choppy Changey Double New England IPA sounded like it was really good.
Hell yeah, it was.
What's the crazy stuff that you do on the 7?
That was it. I wanted to make that. It's from a TV show, Choppy Changey. It's a haircut, a chop and a change. It's an Irish TV show that my wife was watching, and I was cracking up, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to name a beer Choppy Changey. That was it. Yep, a chop and a change.
That element to us. Yep.
Right. So yeah, I get to, for the most part, on that 2-barrel, I can do whatever. I can still do whatever I want.
7.
I just did wet hop, so right now it's not so exciting. I made a fest beer.
That's exciting. Those are both exciting.
Well, the fest beer I love. The one I made last year was freaking awesome. Yeah. And this one I've just been pulling off of the fermenter. It's like done lagering next week, and it's so good. This was a collaboration I did with our local homebrew club, the Snobs. Society of
Ohio Brewers.
Yeah. So yeah, I did this one with the Snobs for their 30th anniversary. And then I did a wet hop. Oh man, what did I end up doing? There's so many hops in this beer. Got way more than I ever expected. So we have there's a large urban farm like across the street, like around the corner from the brewery. We have a huge plot on. I think I got close to 100 pounds from them, from the Ohio City farm. And then my friend has property, and he found wild hops growing like 4 years ago on his property. And we strung all those up, and we got another 35, 40 pounds off of his from OMJ Farms. Old Man Johnson, thanks for your hops, buddy. But yeah, so I just did that into 7 barrels. I'm pushing 20 pounds per barrel with wet hops for.
Yeah.
I did. It's good. I was doing fermenter pulls this morning, and
we don't get to hop like that very often. But
no, and I can do that. I have the luxury of doing that on that 7-barrel system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to find some Great Lakes IPA now so I can have that beautiful can in my
Right?
collection.
Right?
That is
Well, the
also,
answer to can in the biz.
full disclosure, I gotta say that's one that's getting evolved too. So you got to get it soon.
Right,
Oh,
yeah, right?
You're
Yeah,
kicking them off the can?
Yeah.
That
We
is
couldn't handle it. There were too many, just accidents at grocery stores, people hurting their neck from being like, oh my God, it's gorgeous.
it was a public safety.
Yeah, it
requirement.
was. Yes, it was. It was mostly grandmothers, but
Well, I'm glad you're thinking about the public. That was
Right,
a very
Well,
very altruistic sacrifice to remove yourself from the can for the general safety of
grandmothers everywhere.
that's right.
So let's talk about a little bit about Hop College, because I think that's a really cool thing when larger breweries have this whole education thing they do. I think probably all of them have that inward facing education they do, and then extend it to their distributors or sales force. But I think that's a lot of time where it stops.
Mhm.
So it's really cool when you invite the public in to also offer those same types of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Hop College kind of ends up covering all of those different audiences right there. First, let me say that we actually have been doing public beer education more or less from the beginning too. I kind of help with our archives at the brewery as well, and we just did a cleaning day not that long ago, and we were rummaging through some old papers, some stuff from way back, like it had to have been the first couple of years. There's a full-on chart of like the brewing process that looks like it was posted in our original tap room at some place. So we've been doing that from the beginning, and I think with Pat Conway being an educator at heart himself, it's something that's always kind of been with us at Great Lakes. We've been doing we used to call it beer school, which is kind of generic. So we wanted to give it a little bit more of a solid name. Recently, I just have to show this off too, because it kind of shows the witty tongue-in-cheek humor for Great Lakes. And I'm wearing the shirt right now, but it's on the back. I graduated at the bottom of my glass right there. So I've been waiting to show that picture for about 90 minutes right now, by the way. So it's on the other side. You can't see it. So, but then we just had this opportunity. We had these cool brewery tours and basic kind of like beer 101 classes. But we were kind of thinking, and it's like, okay, we're talking about craft beer to the craft beer consumer as we did in 2000. And like, everybody's so much more educated out there, maybe in part because of our early efforts at Great Lakes. So we kind of wanted to, again, evolve that as well. So we came up with this idea of Hop College. I couldn't live with myself if it was Brewniversity or something like that. It had to be something different than that. So we came up with the idea. It's got a little bounciness to it, Hop College. And what do you do in college? You learn and you drink a lot of beer. So it makes sense. And what we do is basically with the public classes, we offer a similar kind of training that we do to our internal staff. So we have run Beer 101 classes in the past where we go through the brewing process, sensory, how to taste beer, and then, of course, use our brands as examples of what different classic styles look like, or now that we're doing a little bit more innovative stuff, what these more recently developed styles look like. And then we even get a little bit more in depth with some more specialized classes. So I'll do a class where I break down the style. I will use the Beer Judge Certification Program guidelines for that when it comes to the sensory side. I'll take a deep dive into the history of the style. So, excuse me, we just did IPAs because Hazecraft launched. So, and it's, of course, been an interesting challenge to do this in the COVID era, but very quickly, first through live stream tastings on Facebook, but then even we had a class where like people bought tickets, they paid a certain sum of money. And they came by the brew pub and picked up a little 4-pack of beers. We gave them Burning River, Commodore Perry, Great Lakes IPA, and Hazecraft. And we just walked through the history of hoppy beers, IPAs throughout history. Part of the big draw is that participants got this excellent hop branded Teku glass.
That is nice.
Why would you not want that, right? It's definitely worth the price tag. And it's really cool. And like we had like 12 people sign up. It was like, this is the first time we're doing it. It feels pretty good getting 12 people. So it's really cool. We really love and have always loved, but even more so now than ever, love sharing, the wisdom we've gained over the past 30 years, the stuff that we've kind of gleaned from our partners. Like, I use the Cicerone program a lot too. I'm certified Cicerone and lead our own internal trainings for that. So definitely lean on their resources too. And it's just a lot of fun, kind of nerding out and sharing that with people, no matter where they're coming from. So what's really cool too, is that we've never been able to offer this stuff for people outside Cleveland. But now, if you're in Maryland, if you're in Frederick, and you want to watch me talk about, let's say, maybe in mid-November, I'm going to talk about holiday beers, maybe. Talk about Christmas ale and some other beers we're going to have out then. It's like a nominal fee, hop on the class, go out to the store and find Christmas ale 6-pack and still participate that way. So, it's a lot of fun.
That is, I would say, one of the few benefits of COVID, where it may have greatly altered experiences that places were used to doing, but they've adapted things where you can now make them available to so many more people. Maybe not as great as if you're able to do it in person, but so many more people have access to it now.
Something that we were not necessarily expecting was the chat was blowing up the whole time we were doing this class. And sometimes it depends on your group. You usually have a couple loquacious people with the in-person classes. But most people actually kind of stay quiet. But what was really cool about this was just like so many people were contributing to the discussion, because you didn't have to, you weren't there on the spot. You didn't feel like, oh, I'm going to say something dumb in front of the class or anything like that. So it was really cool.
It's less scary to say something dumb virtually than it is in person.
Yeah. As long as it can't be retweeted or something like that. But,
one of the sponsors of the podcast is a brew pub, or not a brew pub, but a pub in Frederick. And every month they do a beer dinner that focuses on a single brewery. They do, when they were in person, it was 5 courses, each course paired with a separate beer. So he started doing virtually, where he pared it down to 4 courses and like pre-cooked portions of it, and then packaged that course into a bag, included a can of beer. And we recorded videos of how to finish cooking each course. And then that evening, we did a live stream with a Q&A about the meal and anything you wanted to ask the brewery. And I was surprised at the interaction with those. Like, people who didn't participate in the dinner still hopped on just so they could ask questions to the brewery and to the restaurant. And it was the same thing. I've been to a ton of those in-person dinners. No one ever asks a question.
Yeah.
But at these, like, people just constantly asking things. It was really cool.
Yeah. It makes us feel better too when people actually respond and contribute.
Yeah, it makes you feel like, cool, people are paying attention.
I know, yeah, exactly. Rep, it's really nice. Silver linings, right?
So do you have a whole curriculum plan that, like, stuff you need to wait until you can start doing things in person again? Or are you now trying to adapt everything so that you can do it virtually?
Yeah, pretty much right away, we started thinking in terms of virtual. We actually had a live tasting on Facebook and I think it was the fourth week of March, so kind of the last week of March, but like pretty much it was no more than a week and a half after things started to get shut down. And we had just come out with the Dortmunder cans, and Dortmunder, especially again back home, is a big beer for us, and we wanted people to know. So I just hopped on with our social media guy, and we did a 45-minute live tasting of Dortmunder, and we talked about why cans are important, and talked about the beer is going to taste the same in the can, it's going to be better, all that stuff. So yeah, and certainly with so much uncertainty about, we'll say, the next 6 to 9 months, we are going to be doing virtual programming for the foreseeable future. I would even say, even after all this is done, why would you not keep doing it? Like, we'll bring back in-person classes. We will do brewery tours again. But if you got fans out in, Virginia or Wisconsin or wherever, upstate New York, and that's just another way to reach more people by offering these virtual experiences. So we'll definitely keep doing them. We will definitely be doing a holiday beer one in November, and then that's like a deep dive class too. It's like exactly what you would get in person, with just like a 2-hour class where we cover like 4 beers and really go nitty gritty. But you'll see more casual, laid back tastings that I have done a bunch of. Forman's done a bunch of too, and we'll rotate some other fun characters from the brewery in as well. So yeah, it's definitely going to keep going. And then especially consider for us, we have a lot of new beers coming out next year. It's going to be really important to keep doing that stuff, because there's some creative things coming down the pipeline that people are going to want to know a lot about.
Nice. I look forward to, if how good Hazecraft is any indication of the other new stuff you have coming out, I look forward to seeing what you have cooking.
Oh yeah.
Now I wanted to go into Ohio craft beer scene in general, but maybe we could skip over that if you want, since I've already kept you guys close to 2 hours now.
Yeah.
And my family just got home, so I don't know how long it'll be before I have a kid run through that door right there.
Yeah, I've been doing it the whole time. Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah, I was going to say, 2 hours is kind of a good amount of time, but if you want, I'm cool talking Ohio. We've touched on almost everything else so far.
Yeah, we have.
right.
You know what we should do? Let's, whenever you are able to talk about all the new exciting things you have coming out, let's do a follow-up episode, and then we can talk about Ohio in general.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. Could mention
Absolutely.
So that's
I got a
what we
bunch of
call.
secrets right now I want to spill, but I can't spill them.
Yeah.
So maybe we should just keep talking and have someone bring you more beer.
Right? Yeah, exactly. He's right. He's sitting on the couch playing on his laptop right now, right? Beer dinner.
Out.
What was that, Mike?
I said that's my danger right now, is that I'm almost out.
Yeah.
So we could spend a couple minutes just talking Ohio craft beer real quick and then wrap it up if you want.
No, let's save it. Let's do a follow-up episode and let's save it. Because I feel like I need to come out and experience some first before talking about it.
That's not beer. That's an experiment in a beer bottle. That's not beer.
and I hear my kids are getting
It's
progressively
ranch
louder.
water, Mike. He's trying to hand me a bottle. I hand bottled a few bottles of ranch water for a test, like age and stability testing. And I
Valley Ranch. Yeah.
and it's in the fridge, and he's like,
Want to drink this
they're
next?
holding it, like going to open it, and I'm like, no.
Might be another one of the secrets. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not
Please
even
hope.
we're not going to explain what that is.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time. I greatly enjoyed learning about a beer that I started drinking forever ago. And I really, really do enjoy Hazecraft. This is
Awesome.
I'm glad that it's a year-round available, because I really think this is like a great just nightcap, or like as you were saying, like a bike ride beer.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I love it. I'm so happy with that beer. The cans look great. Beer tastes great.
Yep.
It's trouble. It's
Yeah.
trouble in a can.
So thank you guys for your time.
No problem.
And
Yep.
thank you everyone for watching and listening. Cheers.
Cheers, all.